And welcome to today's Audit Tuesday Live. My name is Jerry Sasson. I'm the CRO of a new company called Edge Realm. EdgeRealm.ai is our website. You guys formerly know me. Many of you who have come to Audit Tuesday, I've been on here before as your host, and I'm just glad to be back here again. You previously know me from MyTech Network, which is just really an organization, an association of independent reps helping customers find solutions and solutions find customers. Today, we're going to break down CISA's Secure Cloud Business Application Framework. If you're not familiar with that, the acronym there is SCuBA. And if you're not familiar with CISA, you can go to their website, cisa.gov. There's some great information on there. There's actually a fact sheet on who CISA is. I pulled up earlier today and just doing a little bit of my own research. CISA stands for Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency. This is a federal agency, and they've got a framework for compliance that they are pushing out called SCuBA, Secure Cloud Business Applications. So if you are in the Microsoft 365 or Google Workspace users, it's, with organizations relying heavily on those solutions, identity, security, and cloud configuration have become major audit risk priorities. And today we're going to focus on what auditors, GRC teams, security leaders, and MSPs need to know. How does it affect you? And today, of course, we have regulars, Garret, Grajek from YouAttest, Jeff Kushner from Allgress, and of course, Kashif from YouAttest as well. And then we've got a special guest for you guys, a good friend of mine, Jason Dunn-Potter. Jason is a former Chief Warrant Officer, but also was at the White House for communications, was one of the 4 CTOs of the White House focused on communications. So glad to have everybody here. I'm going to let each of them kind of introduce themselves, get a little background as we go forward and then as we start asking questions. But I want to dig right in. I'm going to start with you, Jeff. What is SCuBA and why should we care about it?
Well, thanks, Jerry. Thanks for having me. Well, as you mentioned, SCuBA is the Secure Cloud Business Applications, and it's from CISA, part of the Department of Homeland Security. I think it's key to understand that CISA focuses on providing specific prescriptive gold standard baselines and configuration guidelines for government and civilian organizations. It's very focused and prescriptive, and with SCuBA, it's very focused on these applications we're talking about in future SaaS apps, very different from other type of guidance frameworks like NIST, which is a much broader guidance over a lot of coverage areas. And so this is a piece of the puzzle. And so CISA established SCuBA in 2022 to address cybersecurity gaps in SaaS applications, intrusions, and compromises. This is a mandate for federal agencies to be completed by June of 2026, but it's also become the gold standard for the private sector for SaaS applications. So I think it's really important to understand the main objective of SCuBA is to provide starting baseline configurations to manage Microsoft 365 and Google Workspace with plans for other SaaS applications. Again, it's only a baseline, it's a starting point. And so you'll need to do other things to make sure that you're compliant. So it brings up the question, does SCuBA fully manage security for Microsoft 365 and Google and other SaaS environments? The answer is kind of yes and no. And I'd say that because first thing, as I mentioned, that these are guidelines, not end-all be-all controls that you need to be concerned about. Like for data and resource access, you will need other tools like YouAttest to evaluate critical controls that are not prescribed by SCuBA. The other thing that I think is important to remember that we often forget since SANS was introduced is that it's part of what's called the cloud shared responsibility model. In that model, the cloud service provider manages the security of the cloud, the infrastructure, the application code, the physical security, while the customer, you, manage security in the cloud, and that's data, user access, and configuration. SCuBA focuses on helping you in the cloud, which is your responsibility. But at the same time, you got to remember that's the baseline, the suggestion. You have to have other controls around it, and you only really know is if you're compliant, if you verified through a gap analysis against your own policies and procedures.
Gotcha. So, Jeff, you're probably one of the most well-versed people I know around, compliance. And, I want to give a little bit of background, I guess, on you. You're the Chief Marketing Officer for Allgress. Now, Allgress, you're a solution that helps to automate GRC, correct? Governance, risk, and compliance. And so there's a difference between subjective and prescriptive when it comes to these compliance, this framework, right? So can you kind of share a little bit about, this is more of a prescriptive recommendations, correct, or baseline framework, correct?
Yeah, correct, Jerry. So this is prescriptive, where they're actually telling you what you should do compared to other regulations and guidance, like NIST, for example, which is really just guidance. Is that while there are suggestions of what you should do, is that the customer has to decide what meets their risk objectives and which controls to put in place, because typically they're not all put in place. It depends on the customer, and it can get very complicated.
Yep. I'm going to come back to you. I want to first go to Jason. Jason, give us a little bit of your background. Just introduce yourself for us, and then I want to ask you, from your experience inside of DoD and the White House, why were frameworks like SCuBA become necessary in the first place? What problem was the federal government really trying to solve here? And then, Jeff, I'll come back to you and talk a little bit about how that applies over to the commercial space as well. So.
And first, I'd like to say, Jerry, thanks for inviting me, right? I like to talk to industry because, honestly, it's a problem, right? We have a lot of problems. And it's helpful when they understand and frame the problem. So I'm Jason Dunn-Potter. I'm the Innovation Director for North America. My job is to go out and solve government's problems. I'm a public sector, right? So those who don't understand, that's government, right? So that's federal, state, local, community college, whatever. If you've got one of those agencies, I'd love to talk to you about this more. And then my role is to help identify problems and help the government and everybody else fix them, right? Mesh agencies together, figure out known solutions. So I'm really excited about YouAttest and some of the ways they're getting after some of the problems because we have problems, right? So the biggest thing I see is let's start with the beginning. If you don't have good physical security, you don't have anything, right? If you don't have guards, guns, fences, gates, and things. Well, your user control base is the first line of defense for access to everything you use. All your systems, whether you log in remotely, device, mobile device, whatever, right? You have to know who's on and what access do they have, right? I give it the same example of like my bank account. I have a lot of kids. They have access to my phone from time to time. They can pick it up. They can look at who I'm calling. They can log in with my super secret password, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, like every good person does, right? But then I keep the bank account separate so they can't get into any of the online banking tools, right? Because nobody needs that drama.
At a certain age, you're just a walk-in ATM anyway, right?
Right, exactly, right. You can ask me for money, but you would have to ask me, right? So great, keep it simple, right? So the last thing I'm going to do is we talk about the problem being like what I call a lot of people worry about hackers, right? Hackers coming in and getting permissions, elevated privileges, right? This has been a big issue for years. I'm actually more affected and concerned about the rookie effect. This is the junior admin, the junior system admin that goes in there and doesn't have permissions or doesn't need permissions, everything, but you gave them I don't want to say godlike powers, but they gave them full access to every system, not realizing that they're learning and they're going to make mistakes and they're going to accidentally overwrite or change something. And so when you look at your role-based solutions, your RBAC solutions, you got to really think about this. And it is impossible to manage all of the things they're touching, all of the things that they have access to. It becomes a nightmare, right? If you're a mom and pop shop with 5 people, one person gets the key to the safe, that's fine, right? That's great. But if you have a company of hundreds of people, thousands of people, millions of people, like this is impossible to manage. Like they would spend a lifetime managing just that.
Right? You have to have an army of people.
You have literally a physical army of people, right? In my previous life, right? Like you can't manage all those things. So I'm really excited to hear about what you guys are doing in that space, because at the end of the day, the hackers are a big thing. Like Nevada learned, right? It's a nightmare. Don't let bad things happen to you, right? Don't let everybody have access to full things. If you don't know the story on that, we'll talk about that later. But at the end of the day, it's the rookie effect and then also the hacker effect. Like anybody can get in or accidentally cause chaos, and any disruption to operations impedes operational efficiency, right?
When it comes to federal agencies, Jason, and Microsoft 365 and Google Workspace, where do you think they most commonly underestimate their risk?
Access control.
Yeah.
Right. They do a great job of building cybersecurity tools inside of their compliance things. They look for, logic bombs and worms and polymorphic assaults. That's great. But if I gave somebody access to something and they just ran through the building with keys like they're on fire, like think about your toddler and your bank account, right? If I let a 15-year-old have access to my bank account for 20 minutes, I'm pretty sure my, Amazon is going to go bonkers, right? Whatever they wanted on that whole, if they could just buy whatever, they would. And it doesn't have to be nefarious. And that's the other thing I tell people from the government all the time is your rookie effect isn't necessarily somebody went in there with the intent of taking down your network. They may not have just known that certain things affect other things. The simple example I give you is somebody turned off my SQL database because they didn't know what it was one time. And when you turn that off, apparently, like everything, SharePoint and everything else I use stops working all of a sudden.
Yeah.
Right. And it just seemed like this little server that nobody knew what it was for. It was in the corner. Right. To be fair to the individual, they've been on the job like 8 minutes. Right. But still, pretty soon, everybody knew their name. And so it becomes emotional. Right.
Yeah, I bet. Well, so access control, that's just a great segue into identities, right? So I want to go over to our identity expert, Garret. How does identities play a role in SCuBA?
Yeah, Jason really set that up good. That was good. I mean, identity is the control plane for SCuBA. Basically, what are you supposed to be manipulating to secure what Jason said, access? Well, in the cloud, when we're talking Microsoft 365, Entra ID, Google, identity is controlling everything. Identity is controlling the access. It's controlling who gets access to what. It's controlling how they're getting in. It's controlling what they see. That is all enforced in identity. So, if you go right down, specifically, it's authentication and authorization. It's privileged accounts. And not just the admin accounts, but also
overprivileged accounts.
Yeah, the overprivileged. And let's not forget the NHIs, right? Those non-human identities, which are the identities that are helping us, and I say helping with the AI agents, right? We associate an NHI with them. These have to be reviewed. And it's the configurations of these. Okay, which group is being two-factored? Are they all being two-factored? Are they being two-factored under all circumstances? Those have to be reviewed. And of course, the logging and monitoring of the identities. So all of that is handled through your identity. And, as we'll show later, and I'll even have a slide or two before I have my friend Kushner kick off with a great demo. But what we do is YouAttest connects into your existing identity source and then pulls the information as you wish and allows you to attest to all the roles. So not only do you clean up all the roles, but you also have documentation that you did the practice and procedure and can do this automatically.
So I'm going to ask you the same question I asked Jason regarding the federal agencies. What in the enterprise? What are the commercial industries? What are their biggest thing that they underestimate when it comes to identities?
I wrote it down. Looking around for my desk for a pen. What Jason said, it's rookie risk, hacker risk. But the real thing about identities, it's the problem in identities, it's those two combined, right? It's the rookies. It's just someone says, and people, I was guilty. I know about identity because I started on the help desk, and people got access to how much they yelled at me. Okay. I mean it. Like the sales manager yells at me on Friday, I can't get this sale closed. We're going to miss the quarter if he doesn't have access. You're like, F you. And you just hit a button and he gets access. Okay. So I would chalk it up as rookie risk, right? But then the problem is the hackers are just, they're grabbing any account they can get. And then they will either use what they have or escalate the privileges. We can't make the hacker's job easier. Okay. By over privileging accounts.
And that'll continue. That's going to continue till about 3 days after the sun burns out. Right. So, Jeff, let's go back over to you. We talked about identities. Can you share, some other areas of cybersecurity, identifying security vulnerabilities in the commercial space or federal, either way?
Well, it is that I think that SCuBA, like others, is none of them are set it and forget it. Is that you're always going to have baseline changes. The root cause is always going to be some kind of drift. And the drift's going to be dynamic, and it's going to come in different ways. One is that your baseline or your standard, no matter what it is, whether it's SCuBA, whether it's NIST, whether it's ISO, it's going to change at some point. Your policies and your procedures and your environment that you're trying to use as your hedge to make sure that you're in line with those configurations or standards are going to change. And then the other piece of it is that I think it's easy to forget, especially when you're in a SaaS environment, is that your cloud service provider may change the infrastructure. And so now you got to keep your eye on all these moving pieces. You have a lot of manual, disjointed, and uncoordinated pieces. And this is where you need a coordinated effort that only can really be achieved with automation. And so that automation can provide really the dynamic visibility you need by continuously monitoring and notifying you there's changes, analyzing that impact against for business gaps against your policies and procedures, and providing guidance to remediate those identified gaps.
Yeah. So I might throw a loop here, and Jason, I'll throw this over at you. You know what Edge Realm does, right? We're focused on bringing customers, process and data sovereignty, right? By really focusing on the edge and bringing a GRC wrapper into that edge environment where we think the crown jewels should be kept, right? Because once your crown jewels are out into the cloud and your cloud provider's agentic AI, eventually it's going to get ingested and you can't get the chocolate out of the milk, right? So how do you live in both worlds, right? So yes, I think the best place for our email and our Office applications, or in Google's case, the G Suite, all that out in the cloud. How do you keep a hybrid environment by keeping that data, that special data, and most valuable data, sovereignty over that?
Well, first off, let's break it down, right? Clouds provide excellent security for the cloud infrastructure. Your container sits on top of that. Think of it like a container sitting on top of a tractor trailer, right? Did you lock your container? Is your container safe? Right. So if you're not taking the steps you need to do to, like I said, the infrastructure, the truck itself is perfectly secure. They lock the cab, they lock it down, they load your container on top of there. You have to then take that container and then ensure that it's professionalized and secure. So, Jerry, one of the things I like about what Edge Realm is doing is that it's allowing you to keep total control of your container at you. And also it allows you to access the information faster, right? So that's a critical component to that. It's not just the security level, but it's the speed and scale which you can get to it. And so you get both, right? If I own everything, if I own the tractor trailer it's sitting on, then clearly I have total control, right? I love clouds for certain workloads. If you're doing massive AI work and you need millions of data points, you need to scale a website up and it's going to have a bazillion hits, or a, Angry Birds type tool or some application, you need, virtualization and containerization. But if it's just you doing you already know how big your data gets, you know how much data you're ingesting, then you don't need the advantages of what a hyperscaler would bring to you. But that said, also understand if you're using a hyperscaler or a hybrid, multi-hybrid environment, a lot of agencies are doing that now, right? Where I have things on-prem, I have things I push to the cloud, especially if I'm sharing agnostically between different agencies. I still have the same security problem I do, whether it's on my prem or if it's in my cloud. I still have to do all the things. So let's break this down, right? So Nevada was like, they've got 26 agencies, right? They compromised one agency, which then spilled over to 26 agencies and brought down the entire state. This is all avoidable, right? It's all avoidable for a lot of reasons. Detection systems weren't working properly. There wasn't some training and thing. But at the end of the day, like you said, human in the loop is great. I love it when people are helping the system. But let's be honest, there's so many things to manage. I can't. I need automation, right? This isn't new. I need more automation to do things faster for me. And one of the things I definitely, and this is really the linchpin, they gained physical access to the virtual server that allowed everybody access to everything else. It's basically, I threw the keys into the inmates and said, do whatever you want, right? Once I have total access to keys, everything is just everybody's access point, right? It didn't matter any security barricades I put in, any firewalls, any virus protection, anything, because I gave them physical access with credentials. Once I have access to credentials, nothing is safe. It doesn't matter what it is. All the protections, all the security, all the firewalls, all of the things we've done, all the training, right, was for nothing, because now I can literally just walk through the front door with the front door keys, right? And physical access identity, and all the things that go into that is by and large, if you can't protect that one critical component, you might as well leave your house unlocked, right? Like all of it, like leave a front door key that says, hey, it's under the potted plant. Once you have it, you're in, right? So I tell people that, you need to make sure that you're doing all the things you need to do to protect those things. But also understand, you can't do it physically. You need tools to do that better, smarter. And so if you're doing a cloud, if you're doing multi-hybrid, if you're doing on-prem, regardless of where you do your thing, your access point is still a user credential, a login system, and who got into what, when, and how. And by the way, I also want to audit that. Who's getting into what, and when are they getting into things? Because
it sounds like SCuBA is the start, right, for the cloud side, exactly. And especially for organizations supporting government or, even the commercial space.
Why is this person from Zimbabwe bogging into my server through this? Yeah. That seems really something we should have asked before we got to this point, right? I feel like maybe that should have been in my maybe asking myself questions. Anyway, I'm on.
So Jeff, how do you get started? How do you get started? Understanding your posture against those baselines.
Well, I think first thing is by doing an audit, is figuring out where you stand against your baseline, and so that's a couple areas where Allgress can help. As I mentioned, there's really, and as Jason mentioned, there's two pieces of the pie. There's one is the part that's provided by your cloud service provider, and the one that's in the cloud that you're managing is we have a couple offerings that can help there. One is Allgress is RegWatch. It manages regulatory and baseline changes. And we're talking about the root cause of this drift. And so we can automate that entire process of notification of changes, analyze the impact of changes, identify gaps of your policies and procedures from those baselines that you set. And the result is a gap analysis report with guidance on becoming compliant. And the other piece of that, as we talked about, is the part that sits in the cloud provided by your cloud service provider. That's really where you need to periodically analyze that part of the equation, is by automating the process of performing a third-party risk assessment on your inherited control managed by those cloud service providers. So you really got to look at both parts of it, the part that you control, the part that the cloud service provider controls, so you have a complete picture of where you stand.
And you guys have an offering. Allgress obviously has an offering for that. You want to talk about that?
Yeah, and that's what I just was talking about, Jerry. We have a couple. We have actually quite a few offerings. The few that we're talking about here that's germane to our conversation is our Reg Watch, which really keeps an eye on things that change and how that affects you and lets you know and identifies the gap. And then the other part of that is a third-party risk assessment, though we have tools to do a complete assessment against any framework, any guideline, provide guidance, and the entire workflow to remediate gaps in your environment.
Awesome. And so we're going to talk later. You have a special offer you want to offer out to the audience, and we'll come back to that. But I want to go back to Garret, talking about identities and how you guys work together. Allgress and YouAttest fit together very well and focus. Why don't you share with us a little bit about what YouAttest does around SCuBA and identity compliance?
Yeah. The main thing is, and I'm even going to be so bold as to help bring up a visual here to emphasize.
Yeah, that'd be great. Love visuals.
There we go. Let's get the window.
I'm interested to see where you can take it, because I got to tell you that we got problems. Right.
So, there you go. There you go.
Anything that starts and ends with "I can fix things quickly with automation," because, well, I mean, let's do the math on this, right? So Nevada they were compromised in May. They figured it out in August, and then they didn't know what to do with it until turned into a pumpkin later, right?
And that was an identity problem, right?
Yeah.
It was. Well, yeah. Somebody downloaded a malicious file, then it gave them elevated privileges. And they basically just walk through the front door.
And I'm going to riff on what Jason said, that the biggest problem with identity is. The biggest problem with identity is that they're usually set up right? But what happens is over time, the concept of privilege creep and privilege drift, that, the permissions just keep growing. And that's the natural tendency of permissions. If you don't have a countermeasure, a control, which is what YouAttest is, it's control that does the user access review. If you don't have a countermeasure to the natural tendency of identities to just escalate in privileges, you will have a problem. So to answer your question, this is what YouAttest does. It gives you the ability, and then we'll do a demo later, of what access you have given at this current point of time. It automates, as Jason says repeatedly, it automates. There's nothing wrong with manual access reviews, except for no one wants to do them and they don't get done. So other than that.
So Garret, give us a couple of ways how that privilege creep happens. Job change,
like I said,
project assignments, things like that.
Yeah, and someone job changes, different assignments, as you said, which is okay. What happened to his old privileges? And those are the ones that are scary, because the old privileges hang around there as orphan accounts and ghost accounts, and then no one checks on them. Okay, so this is just to let people know that whatever, this is how we work. Okay, we built an automated cloud tool that this is people's lives. They go, okay, great. I got all these identities. I got all these regulations. Add SCuBA onto it. Fine. Okay. Where do I start? What they do is utilize a tool like YouAttest. It's cloud-based, SOC 2 Type 2. Okay, multi-tenanted, used by customers that put literally millions of roles through this product. Okay.
Are you sharing a visual?
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, we don't see it. I don't see it.
Yeah, I don't see it either.
Let me make sure it is.
Here, I'll let you play with that while I kind of flesh out some of Jerry's question, right? So here's the thing, right? I'm always in flux. I have people coming in, coming out. I have HR processes where I'm hiring and firing people all the time because I have to, because it's just people are leaving, right? People are leaving to go do other things. They change job roles. I mean, who has a job for 30 years anymore? Right, which is natural. It's an ebb and flow. Right? I don't want to get into the management side of that, but the point is that people are coming and going. I have people that are assigned to a project for a period of time: finance managers, project leaders, people in needs to know status, who come and go all the time. And then I have my extranet users, right? So let's think about something like Ford Motor Company works directly with Firestone, right? I tie the two together. They have a project. They're going to build the next super Maserati, Ford, pick your favorite model, right? Ford F, 1500 or F-150, right? Firestone's going to build new tires for it. Build some super secret scroll tires. Well, during the period of time we're working on that project, we're both together, and that's great. 20 minutes after that project's done, I don't need anybody on that Firestone list to have access to anything else on the future of the F-150 for next year until it's time to bring them in, right? Those are just one example of extranets. But in government, I tie into interagency all the time. I have people all the time that need certain programs and projects and files and access points, even it's one file, one information share.
Contract gets completed and they don't take away the rights for the access from that contractor. Yeah.
Or I bring in a new team member, or they change roles. They get promoted, by the way. Good job, Becky. You're doing amazing, right? Let's move you to the top of the stack. But all of a sudden I move you up the stack, but you no longer need access. I don't need the CEO of a company to have full admin access to their box. I don't have full admin access to my box.
Yep.
Right. And nor should I.
Jason, I was a contractor once for a company that was doing MRI. What they did is they took DICOM files and turned them into JPEGs. And I'm like, well, how are we going to test it? And I'm not making this up. This was 30 years ago before I had my CSP and all that. They said, oh, that's okay. We have a lot of the default accounts from the MRIs in the hospitals. Okay. Because they did service work. And that's how they got.
Yeah, by the way, we can see your visual now.
Yeah, I got you.
If you want to walk
through. So here is the reality that we're talking about. This is some guy who's overloaded, all that, has all these regulations, all this, but it has all these identities. What it does is YouAttest imbibes those identities multiple ways. Okay, got our agents. That's what I was showing the demo. It got other ways to do it. We can get the identity metadata, your current state of entitlement privileges for your resource. And I say this nebulous because we're doing more and more of MSPs and consultants are using this product because it's multi-tenanted. So this could be someone inside the company or someone outside. And what YouAttest does is allow you to manipulate the GUI to say, what do you want to review? You want to review the entire container? You want to review this group or this role? Or you want to review this application? Then it automatically determines who the managers are and sends out should these people have privileges? And this is where the 5 years of work comes in, because companies tell us, auditors tell us, Garrett, what that's got to do is that's got to go to a group, or that's got to go to a group and every single one of them have to approve. Or Garrett, that's got to go to 3 different groups and it's got to be in this order that they approve. We have all these workflows built in now, and it's out of the box, including comment fields for all these. Okay, the most important about this process is, because we've been talking about privilege creep and privilege drift, is that these managers can say, that's not my guy anymore. That's over at Bob, or Jane has that one, or Raj has that one. So you delegate out. You delegate out to the privileges, and all that workflow gets done. And then it goes back and cleans up the IAM and also creates a report. And
that's critical to get the back end, right? Because once I remove you out of there, I don't need you to have access later. And again, not saying you're malicious, but sometimes let's say you get compromised as your credentials, and now I have full access to everything you've ever touched, right? And that's bad, right? That just makes the problem go from bad to super bad.
Right? Absolutely.
Yeah. Absolutely. So, Jason, I think by now the answer should be obvious to this question, but I got to ask it anyway.
Shoot.
If you could give auditors, CISOs, and MSPs one piece of advice when approaching SCuBA, if they're going to take the SCuBA prescriptive pill and they're going to implement that across their organization, what should they focus on first?
First and foremost,
get real value, to get real security value.
Right. Don't wait to adopt. Don't be a late adopter. Don't think it's a good idea 5 years from now. The second thing is, we already spent a lot of money on 2FA, right? We spend a lot of money in research and effort to make sure people are logging in authenticatedly and make sure they're them. That's awesome. What do they have access to, and who has access to everything is the most important thing. Once you get through the front door, I need to protect everything and everyone, and identity management is everything to the kingdom. It controls all the access points. By the way, we didn't even talk about things like AI agents and agentic agents, right?
Yeah.
That come in and start accessing
non-human identities.
Yeah. Right. Like I start doing what we call, RAG models, right? Where I'm slicing data off of databases and bringing it into other data. This is becoming emotional. In fact, Hollywood's suing people over content they made years ago, and people are then slicing it off to make other content, right? inside the government, like especially government
copyright violations.
Copyright violations.
Oh my, yeah.
CUPA, DMA, DCMA. The point being is, at the end of the day, your data integrity of the data that you're going to be isolating, more people are going to want more access in the future. There's going to be a lot of data systems that are going to want access to everything. You have to make sure that you have a solid plan to how you configure that and how you control who gets what, when they get it. By the way, do they get it like stale data, like a FOIA request, or are they getting something like real time, right? And how do I protect the data that is most important? Because here's the thing, if I tweak that data even a little bit, I can change the entire output of an AI model. And that is going to have huge impacts to everybody, and they're not going to figure it out until it's too late if they don't have good access control points, right? And so integrity is about to become, I want to say, probably the heaviest of the CIA triad when it comes to AI modeling, because if you don't know that data is protected and it isn't been modified even by the simplest person who just didn't know, they deleted a SQL database or deleted something, and the AI model reran with a new training, you're going to end up with a skewed model, which then gives bad outputs, which then generates lack of trust. And the minute you start having lack of trust and data integrity, people stop using the tools or trusting anything you tell them after that. It's like lying. Once I've lied to you once, I've lied to you forever. Data integrity is critical. And so having access to that information, and let me tell you, if you don't know AI is here and it's moving, we're doing a lot with it.
And that's where Edge Realm can come in and help. And by the way, both these solutions and a few others are in our GRC wrapper. Would love to share more about that with you. But let's go back to Jeff. Jeff, how does this audience get started? What do you have to propose to them?
Well, what we're doing is for the registrants and of this webinar, what we're offering is to provide you notification of when there's SCuBA changes and what the potential impact to your organization is. While this offer is focused on SCuBA, is that we can provide those notifications of any regulation, best practice, or framework, which is really the key to get started. And then you follow up that by taking a look at how do your policies and procedures line up against what you're trying to achieve, so you can remediate where it makes sense. And so everybody will get a link to sign up for this, and it'd be no cost, and it'd be a good way to get started, since this is where it all begins when a regulation changes and against your baseline.
And if they want to leverage Allgress to do that initial baseline assessment, you can do that, correct? And how quickly could they get started with that?
All we need is them to register. We need them to click on the link that'll be in the replay, or to contact Allgress or contact me, and we'll provide it for them, and then get started immediately.
Yep. You can also contact me. We are a partner of Allgress as well. And so, Garret, let's go back over to you. You want to share a few more things around identities, and maybe put Kashif on the stage here.
Yeah, that's what I'm going to do. Put Kashif
on
the stage and have him do a quick demo. And while he's doing it, I'll set up what the offer is from YouAttest. And yes, world, we are partners with Allgress, and we're partners, of course, with Edge Realm and integration into that amazing set of tools. So what we're saying for this wonderful webinar is, here's the deal. What you're going to see right now, people are using now, not only do they do quarterly audits of this thing and monthly audits and yearly audits, we have consultants and teams using this for the first time to clean up their users. So what we're going to do is we're going to waive the setup fee for a one-time usage. So you just say, hey, I went to the SCuBA webinar, and we get to that. If you want to get a year's license or whatever, like all our customers do, go for it. We'll give you a 10% off. But let's go.
Awesome.
Show you how you can clean up your users and start knowing who you've given access to.
Take it away.
Thanks, Garret. Thank you, Jerry. Hello, Jeff, Jason. I hope my screen is visible.
Yeah, we're showing. You're better than me.
Great. I'm not going to go deep into the integration part, because that's something that doesn't take more than like 30 to 45 minutes to get any client up and running when it comes to integration. So we're talking about an hour, not a week or a day or a couple of days. We can just get any client up and running with integration within first 60 minutes into the call. This is what they will get access to after the integration. The dashboard is showing um, it's integrated and plugged into one of the Microsoft Entra ID tenants platforms that we have. It can also integrate into other platforms, other IAMs, for example, Google Workspace. We're working on that. If it's Jump Cloud, if it's Ping One, if it's Okta, we can plug into those IAM platforms. But right now, I'm showing the one for Microsoft Entra ID. After the plugin, it's pretty simple. You go to these pre-built use cases to create an audit. You can have an application audit to see what kind of access users have in a particular application, or you can do a group audit if you have assigned privileges to a role or to a group instead of assigning everything to an individual identity or a user. Then group audit is the best thing to see here, who can access what within your system. And then also you can target individual users with a lot of privileges, special privileges, admin users, global admins, you name it. I mean, anyone you have given more access to than you should have, because they needed it. You can target those individuals to see whether they should have this access now, or should we remove that because they're no longer in that role. So just for a demo purpose, I will create a finance group audit just to see who has got access to the finance group, because privileges have been assigned to users to access finance applications, to access the database, to access whatever finance deals with through the finance group. And here you can choose the due date for this audit. Could be from a couple of days to a couple of weeks, depending upon the number of users involved in this group. Pretty simple. Go next, and you can target your application. You can target your group for that purpose. I'll go for finance here and see who has got access to that. It will take a few seconds because you've plugged in. It's going to get the metadata in real time and display that information to you in a nice format. So here are the users who can access finance application. You can see the primary profile attributes like their username, email ID, which is the unique identifier, and the manager's direct line manager they're reporting to right there on this page. But in order to save real estate, the rest of the information, and it's all also relevant information, we show that under more details, which includes the title, description, last login date, last password change date, user role, and user status, whether it's active or inactive within the system. Once an admin has this information, it's pretty easy after that by going into auto delegation, because it will pick up either who the manager is for these users, or who are the application owners or the group owners, and then you can decide who should be reviewing their access and their access level. Once you confirm, it starts pushing out notifications to these respective managers or to the group owners, application owners. And what they see, if I switch my role just a little bit, show you what a manager or reviewer is going to see, is this email or Slack notification along with the link to the audit, which when they click on will directly take them inside the dashboard. They will see the audit, and they will see the users that being delegated by the admin to them. These are the users that report to that manager. So
quick question. Quick question. Yeah. So how do you validate SCuBA compliance for cloud environments running AI workloads? That question came across.
Oh, okay. Garret,
yeah, actually, let me take that, because I've been working on a lot on the mapping our stuff to the NIST AI RMF, but most relevant to ISO 4201. Okay, and it's exactly what Jason said. It's that you've got to quantify, and that's what ISO 4201, and that's what we map to says. You have to quantify who is involved, in collecting the data? Who is involved in storage of the data? Who is involved in the training of the data? Who is involved with the algorithms? The algorithms. Who owns the algorithms? Who's involved in the deployment? All 5 of these groups, which Kashif is literally showing right now, have to be quantified and certified for a governed AI deployment. So we'd be glad to show you how to use this for your AI environment.
So there's a second part to that question. Are there specific testing procedures for Microsoft 365 Google Workspace configurations?
It's
specific
going through your entitlements. It's going through. First of all, a lot of, especially small companies, don't do a good job of setting up their entitlements to be role-based. That's step number 1. You got to make them role-based. They can't be individual. Oh, Bob gets that. Raj gets that. Bob gets that. It can't be done.
Please don't do that. Yeah.
Thanks. You know that hurts your brain, Jason, but it's done. You know, been there, done that.
So that question came across the chat, and I want to again invite the audience. You know, folks that are with us, please feel free to ask questions as we're going through this.
Go for it. I think that the other thing, Jerry, is that the controls that are prescribed through SCuBA are, you know, they're very focused on this environment, and they're not all inclusive, and so they really have to be expanded to take a look at the full impact, as like Garret was saying, especially for ISO 42001.
Awesome. Continue, Kasha.
Thanks, Jerry. So yeah, see, the reviewer sees the users that should have access, or they already have access, so they can either agree or disagree to the level of access they have. If they agree to what this user should have, they just say certify. But if they don't, they can recommend to revoke their access immediately, and it goes with their name on it, with the timestamp as well, so that, you know, it has a whole audit trail instead of like a checkbox on an Excel sheet that nobody knows who has just, you know, checked it. So that way, if I go back to my admin role and refresh the page, I can still see and monitor and track the progress my reviewers are making by reviewing these users. And in this, especially, I mean, in this case, you don't have to, or nobody has to write a follow-up email or chase after somebody who's not performing anything. It's all automated. They all get these notifications, these reminder emails, and you can program those emails within the console, within the platform, and you can also configure the frequency, you know, these people or these managers should be receiving these notifications, how regularly, how frequently. So you can program all that. The end result, because it's just clicking through the GUI, you don't have to do anything manual apart from, you know, the only thing exception is you put a comment in here. That's the only thing that, you know, you need to do manual, and that comment justifies your action or your recommendation, why you want to certify, why you want to allow, or why you want to revoke somebody's access. And that goes into your final evidence, final report as well, which is the gist of the final product of this audit. And it looks something like this in PDF, and it's also available in the CSV format. But it provides you an entire audit trail for every single user involved in an audit, and not just, you know, just a check mark that this has been done, this has been taken care of. Nobody knows who did it. No timestamp is there. Nobody knows who was it delegated to, and what kind of access did this person have. The other thing, the most critical thing, is that we can write these revocations from within YouAttest application into your Microsoft Entra ID. So for example, if you have any revocations in an audit, you can execute those revocations on an application level, on a group level, or an individual user level within Microsoft Entra ID. And by that, what we mean is we don't remove or delete anyone's identity. We only suspend or deactivate that user from getting access to the targeted entity. If it's a group, if it's an application, that user will no longer have access to that target. So that's what we do, and Garret can talk more about it. But just an overview. There's a lot more we can do with this application, with this tool, including anything that is not part of your Microsoft environment, and you have certain siloed applications that are not connected. We also have a way to ingest that information and create automated audit for you.
And we should add,
excellent,
and it is relevant to Edge Realm and in the audience, we've got very advanced based on, gosh, if it was on the spot, we got him up there. He showed you right away how to get your IDs and groups and entitlements out of the entry ID. This also goes for what you shared in OneDrive, what you shared in SharePoint, what you shared in Teams. And every time I show that to CISO, they're like, yeah, I really don't know what my team has been sharing. Okay. And that's all built in the product, and glad to show you.
Awesome.
That's emotional.
All right, hey, guys, we got about 10 minutes. Let's wrap it up. Let's do a round robin. Jason, start with you. Thanks for joining us today, by the way. It's really an honor to have you, and really appreciate all your input. But
I'm excited.
And by the way, any more questions from the audience, feel free while we're still got the guys on. So.
Yeah, just interrupt me if there's questions that come in. So I will tell you, one, thanks for the opportunity, right? I always want to talk about the problem set. So we level set the room, right? What's wrong? What are the problems? How do we fix them, right? Really, I'm excited about Garret and Jeff and the rest of the team working on solving the problem through automation, because I got to tell you, I've lived this fight for a long time. And it's very emotional when you go in there and you're like, hey, we got a new staff member, people are trading and promoting all the time, especially in the military, right? I'm moving people every year, and there's constant flux and flow for every exercise, especially when you start talking coalition partners where, there's 99 guys named Jeff, but we don't know which one's the right Jeff, right? So it's like, we even had a guy that had said, be your own Jeff t-shirts for a while, right? Because he worked with our data integrity level, right? And it's hilarious.
That's funny. And
it was, because it was like, hey, which Jeff's the right Jeff? I don't know, just give all of them permissions because one of them's the right Jeff, right? And then like, well, that's not the right answer, right? And then I'm really excited about Edge Realm and some of the stuff you guys are doing on bringing data to the edge where it's needed, so I'm not backhauling everything. I'm really excited about some of the tools I just saw, and because like you did a great job outlining like how the tool really works. So I'm really excited about simple workflow. Like that makes me excited because I'll be honest, I don't have time, right? I need automated tools that are very quick to implement based on our current structure, and I want to be able to adopt that into our current C2 structure, right? Like, hey, this is my project. I already know who's on the project lead. I got a project charter paperwork that tells me who's who. Just add them to the list. That's great. And then, by the way, give automatic like blockouts. Like you only have access when you need access, right? And then when the project's done, I can terminate you and set some of those automatic traps and queues. I'm very excited to see some of the toolage that goes there. And then I can't stress this enough. Least privilege. If you don't learn anything else in cybersecurity, if you're an operations guy, you must know we give them the minimum things they need. Don't give them extra things. Don't give them spare things. Don't whatever. So anyway, I'm just really excited to see automation flow go into this because I got to tell you, it's emotional when you're doing it manually.
All right. Awesome. Thank you, Jason. Another question in from the audience. And then also I have one for you. As far as YouAttest, that can be on-prem or in the cloud, correct?
That's right now we're focused on the cloud, but we have designs that we're working with companies to be on-prem. So if that's a requirement, go for it.
All right, thank you. So from the audience, for CTOs starting SCuBA compliance, what are the top 3 controls that provide the most security value and align well with existing SOC 2 or ISO 27001 effort? And then probably let's send that over to Jeff, I think.
Well, I don't have the actual controls in front of me because it's a variety of different controls. But I would say is that the most important part is to you start with the baseline, and then you do an audit to determine it doesn't meet your control objectives of what you're looking for, and that's where you expand from there. That's always a good starting point. And if somebody already is using one of the other guidance or regulations like NIST or ISO, they may already have some of those pieces already in place because a lot of them cross map to the other. If you meet one of the requirements, you meet the other. But a good place is to start with the baseline and then measure that against what you already have in place. Awesome. So like that, you know exactly where you stand, not necessarily just implementing a control or a set of controls.
Awesome. And, obviously that person, whoever asked that question, welcome to reach out. Love to get in touch with Jeff, and you guys have further conversation around that. But Jeff, for the round robin, what's your final thoughts for the webinar today?
I think one thing is to remember lots of moving parts. The standard or regulation changes, your baseline in your policies, they're changing, and potentially the cloud service providers changing. And so you got to keep your eye on all three of those, and you want to automate those pieces so you can see it in a unified view. How does that affect your the risk posture that you're trying to achieve?
Awesome. Garret, over to you.
I'll say what else was on one of the slides that I don't think I showed, but it's in its answer to the last question. It's NIST CSF 2.0 PRAA05, principle of least privilege, and that is copied and pasted from not just the NIST and not just into the CISA SCuBA, but into the SOC and the ISO 27001, into HIPAA, into PCI DSS, into GDPR, into ISO, into EU DORA. Now it's saying with the most important control when it comes down to identity is who you've given access to, and do you know, and can you document? And
that's the top one, right? Well, you was asking for top three. Do you have a couple more you can add to that?
I would say basically quantifying access, not only principal of least privilege, but quantifying your admin accounts, and then now with AI, and I think that's a whole nother webinar with that lawsuit going on, with your NHIs.
Yeah, and your configuration management is making sure that you're configured to meet the objective.
Yep. Excellent. Kashif, I'd love to offer to you any last thoughts you want to share from your perspective.
Let me make sure I'm not talking to myself on mute.
Yeah, you're talking to us.
Yeah.
Thanks for joining.
No problem. When it comes to identity, I mean, we can get any client, their solution to audit any resource. It's not just limited to Microsoft. It's not just limited to Okta or any IAM they're using. We can get them their audits in a single day for any resource, any application that they need the audit for.
That's awesome.
That's what we do, without any integration, without anything, any other tech stuff. But we can give them those,
plug and play
when they need it. Plug and play.
And Kashif does. Not only can we do it, we do it.
Well, all right. Well, that wraps it up. We got about 3 minutes left. We can get back, folks. Thank you so much for joining this Audit Tuesday. We look forward to having you on the next one. And that's a wrap.
Thanks a lot, Jerry. Great job, team.
Thanks, Steve.
Thank you.
Bye.